A young couple, Anna and Sergey, were tired of the noisy city and decided to spend a weekend alone with nature. They found an ad for a secluded house on the outskirts of a small village, old and a little neglected, but with a charming view of a dense forest, where, it seemed, all sorts of secrets were hidden. When Anna and Sergey arrived in the village, they noticed that the locals looked at them with caution. When asked about the house they were going to rent, the answer was always the same: an evasive look, silence, or at best a short, "It's been empty for a long time, this strange house." But no one explained what was so unusual about it. Only one old woman muttered that a strange family used to live in this house, and after their sudden disappearance, people avoided it, as if they knew something that they did not tell strangers. As they approached the house, the road became narrower and narrower. Trees surrounded the car on all sides, forming a dark corridor that let in only wisps of evening light. Finally, the house appeared before them, tall, dilapidated, with slightly crooked windows that resembled dull eyes. As soon as she got out of the car, Anna felt a chill run down her spine, although the evening was warm. Entering, they found that the house greeted them with gloomy silence and a stale, damp smell that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Anna noted that the furniture was covered in a thin layer of dust, although the owner swore that he had recently cleaned it. Barely closing the door behind him, Sergey noticed how a draft passed through the corridor, although all the windows were tightly closed. At first, the couple laughed at their fears, attributing everything to the old house and fatigue from the road. But as night fell, strange things began to happen one after another. Anna thought she heard quiet steps outside the window, and Sergey noticed silhouettes flickering at the edge of their vision, but disappearing as soon as they looked straight ahead. And so, when the clock struck midnight, they heard a creaking, a slow sound, as if someone was carefully opening a door in the hallway. Sergey opened his eyes and froze for a moment, listening. The same sounds were heard again and again, the slow, creaking footsteps. He woke Anna quietly, and they held their breath, trying to understand what was happening. But the silence hung over them again, like a thick blanket. They calmed down, deciding that it could be anything. The old house often creaks. But as soon as they lay down again, the creaking came again, closer. This time, the footsteps were accompanied by a muffled rustling, as if someone was barely touching the wall with their fingers. Anna grabbed Sergey's hand, her heart pounding. He hugged her and whispered, "It must be the wind. The house is old. It all seems because of the wind." However, his words sounded unconvincing even to himself. Fear began to rise like a cold wave, and they could no longer convince themselves that all these sounds were just their imagination. Unable to stay in bed any longer, they decided to explore the house. Sergey took the phone, turned on the dim light of the flashlight in their bed, and trying not to make any noise, they went out into the hallway. It was dark there. The light of the flashlight picked out only sections of the walls covered in mold and pieces of the floor where time had left its mark. The silence was so thick that they could even hear their own breathing and footsteps. They carefully moved through the house, peering into rooms one after another. Nothing. And then they heard a quiet, barely audible whisper. It seemed to be everywhere, behind them, in the walls, as if someone had passed by and spoken softly, almost touching their ear. An unbearable cold swept through the room, even though the windows and doors were closed, and the couple realized they were not alone here. Someone or something was watching them, hiding in the shadows, breathing in time with their fear. Anna and Sergei had already despaired of finding peace in this house. Their hearts were pounding, their minds were trying to find an explanation for the strange sounds and the ominous feeling of being watched, which was becoming stronger and stronger. But suddenly, Anna noticed something unusual. In the corner of the old corridor, where the wall panels seemed to fit loosely to the wall, there was a small gap, as if a door was hidden behind ancient wooden panels. With difficulty holding back their trembling, they decided to check what was hidden behind it. Sergei rested against the panel, and it gave way, opening a dark passage from which a suffocating dampness and an ancient rotten smell came, similar to the smell of musty basements and earth that no one had disturbed for a long time. A narrow corridor led down creaky, moldy steps, and despite all the horror of what was happening, curiosity made them go down. Having walked up the stairs, they found themselves in a room hidden under the house. The light from their flashlights picked out ancient symbols scratched into the walls, a table covered in a layer of dust and strange, already faded stains, and several old moldy books lying in the corner. It seemed that no one had entered here for decades, if not hundreds of years. A strange symbol was painted on the floor, a circle with incomprehensible signs along the edges, which seemed to pulse, awakening from their presence. Sergei felt a cold wave pass through his body when he realized that this place was not intended for ordinary eyes. This was a sanctuary, a hiding place, the existence of which no one should know. And then, when Anna decided to approach the table to examine the books, they heard a dull creak behind them. The panel at the top slammed shut by itself, leaving them in complete darkness. At the same second, strange rustling sounds began around them, as if someone was silently gliding through the room, breathing down their necks. Sergei's flashlight began to flicker, the light grew dimmer, and in the last seconds before it died, they noticed movement in the far corner. A shadow, formless and ancient, was detaching itself from the wall, gradually approaching them. Anna and Sergei felt trapped, as if the house itself was not letting them leave. Now they realized that this place was not just empty, it was created to keep something terrible, forbidden, which was now awakened by their presence. Their steps towards the stairs became more and more panicked, but each time they went higher, the step beneath them disappeared, and they were sucked back into the depths of this terrible basement. Something ancient and dark surrounded them, and they realized that there was no way out. The house seemed to come alive, embracing them with its walls, as if it had been waiting for these guests for a long time, never to let them out into the light again.